these are my friends. Come along with me, see how the story ends. We are some hippies, these are my friends. Come along with me, see how the story ends.
What's up, folks? Welcome back to another Professional Hippies episode. Today, we are stoked to be joined by the one and only Mikeadelic. This is, by the way, Glenn, if we could get some applause right there. This is the man of the hour to bring it in on. So, Mike, I'll let you introduce yourself in a second, but if you are new to our show, the whole goal here is kind of blend the difference between professionals, go-getters, and the hippie woo-woo. Find some kind of middle ground in between there and exploring that. That's what we're all about. If you've been following us for a bit, the algorithm's really appreciating all the reviews and the love and the feedback we're getting from you guys. So, hey, if you're into this kind of stuff, feel free to either tell us to cram one or, subscribe. We're down for either. So, Mike, hey, thanks for joining us, brother. It's good to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you, Colton, Dylan.
Yeah, so the way that we stumbled across you was actually through old friend Josh Kennedy, who came on your show and was talking about CBD. I don't know I didn't know if you remember that episode or not, so I wanted to drop it softly, but that was kind of the first exposure to you, and it seems like things in the podcasting world have been treating you well since.
Yeah, cool. That was one of my first sponsors. Wow. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. I forget the name of the company, but they were good.
Dude, that's the best way to shout out a sponsor without
the best.
They're not paying me anymore. So
exactly, right? You're like, hey, no, if you listen
this is
to
the professional
episode,
side of me, okay?
Right. Yeah, I'm a business man.
Yeah, exactly. Jay-Z.
No, that's great. Yeah, dude. So that was the first exposure that we had to you, and then or that I had to you anyway. I think I told Dylan about you at that point, and then sure as shit, I was up in Denver taking a piss, and I look up and see one of your stickers. So that before we were talking here and recording, I just thought you had a cult of people running out there just slapping your stickers everywhere, and I just happened to come across one. But I guess that's your hometown crowd.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of a cult here, so someone put it up. Thank you, and working on expanding the cult a little bit larger. So we'll see.
Yes,
maybe you'll find stickers in Maui next.
I mean, are you even successful if you don't have a cult?
You'll find a professional service one in Maui, I'll tell you that.
Nice.
We have launched a little bit of a brand ambassador program. So if you want to identify, hey, it's 2022, you can identify as whatever. If you want to identify as a professional hippie, let us know. We will send you a whole bunch of swag shit you can pass out at your music festival, your favorite crack den, your mom's house. We don't give a fuck, but just get the word out there. It's really cute. You'll love it.
All over your nitrous tanks. Put it up there.
There you have it, right? So yeah, man, Mike, I mean, hey, take the reins on introducing yourself to our audience. What do you feel like? What are your core values? What do you stand up for in this world?
What do I stand up for? Well, I tell you, I'm really behind the CIA these days. I think they're really doing good things. They turned a leaf. They're really trying to own their mistakes and move on from the past. So I don't know if you've seen their commercials recently. They're very diverse now. So I'm really.
Hey, shut the fuck up. CIA has commercials now?
Yeah. I did a Patreon episode about it called "Woking at the CIA." They're hilarious. Very cringe.
What?
But yeah, no, I'm check it out. It's hilarious. It's really
can't remember a fucking sponsor, but we can plug the CIA.
That sounds like a South Park episode,
dude.
We're not that bad.
Yeah, it's literally a South Park episode would do this as satire. It's hilarious. Just like, go on YouTube and search like working at the CIA and see their new. Maybe like 6 months ago, and they're just like, hey, we don't sell arms to terrorists or do any of those things anymore. We used to, but we're cool now because we're like woke and everything. And it's really funny.
I find it more appropriate to do like the Mitch Hedberg joke, like I used to do drugs. I still do drugs, but I used to do drugs too. Like that's the CIA here, right? Like we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Without you knowing.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it's just funny. I don't know. I guess like finding the joy in everything. That's what I'm all about. Is finding the humor in everything because it's just better that way. And yeah, that's.
Are you a man? Do you eat the icing on the top of the cupcake as well as the whole cupcake, or do you go for one or the other?
You mean like my initial engagement with the cupcake?
I mean, you could take it from initial.
First bite.
For sure. Are you scraping the icing and saving that for later, or are you just going to go?
I'm going with a whole. I want the totality of the texture, the flavor, the richness. I want the diversity of the bottom of the cupcake, the good top part, and then the frost. I want the whole thing. So I'm going for a full bite on the side.
I can appreciate that.
Have you seen the insane people that take the bottom of it and put it on top and make a cupcake burger?
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a
Steer
thing.
clear.
There's like people that do that.
I don't know what color flag that is, but that's a flag. I would steer clear of whatever flag.
I'll be on the lookout. Yeah.
Someone with too much time in their life, really. Those aren't very successful people. You don't want to hang out with.
No, man. So you told us about, all right, so the episode with Josh would be your first sponsorship, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to do like the cookie cutter, what got you started kind of thing, right? Because I think anybody takes a look at the kind of content you're putting out can tell like there's a healthy diversity. There's a range of things that you like to talk about. You're not pigeonholing yourself, but like maybe what did spur you to want to like spread content? And you had a friend of mine, Beth Weinstein, on recently as well. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, what has you engaged enough to want to spread a message, right? Like what's tickling your pickle?
Yeah. My pickle Rick gets tickled by. I guess it. I mean, how far back do you want to go? But I think that like I'll go as far back as like 2012 when I started doing stand-up comedy in New York, and I did that for a while, and then I met some people, and I got on a podcast with a friend of mine, Dave Smith, who still does it. Does a show called Part of the Problem. He's also on another show called Legion of Skanks. And
I've heard of that one.
Yeah, those guys are great. And so I sort of was doing comedy, and I was walking dogs, and then I got on this podcast, and it was something. First we started once a week, and then it was twice a week, and it was great. Went to a studio and just sat down and did whatever we wanted, and then left, and someone else took care of that. It was great. It was great having a studio and like a producer and all that stuff. And then I started getting into psychedelics pretty heavily, probably around the same time, reading a lot of stuff, and then just having a lot of experiences. And I was like, okay, I want to start my own show, and I'm going to call it Mikeadelic. And the original idea was to talk about liberty and psychedelics, because that's what I was into at the time, and comedy. So it's like comedy, liberty, psychedelics, and that was it. That was how it got started.
Yeah, I think all those have kind of the same undertone of just like, hey, let me have fun if I'm not fucking up somebody else's time, right? Like,
yeah.
I was doing the comedy shows in New York. That's kind of like a big mecca for stand-up comedy.
Oh, it was amazing. It was like one of the best times of my life. It was amazing. It was great.
Type of people you met had to be pretty interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean they were the best. I mean, like, just crazy characters, and so many crazy characters, but just tons of funny people and awesome crowds, and just a good time. Yeah.
Is that crowd, that type of person, harder to make laugh initially, but once you crack the facade, do they just spill like an egg, or how's that work? Are they looking for relief, easier crowd, or are they just so hardened by the daily hardships of living in the Northeast? You gotta go deep quick. What is that like?
Well, the crowds, well, it depends, because there's like tourist crowds. So I would sometimes do clubs in Times Square, and those are usually just tourists that somebody on the street said Louis C.K. was going to be there, and they like bought a ticket, and then there's me, you know, and they're like, this isn't what and they're paying $17 for a Coke, and so the tourist crowds are different. The tourist crowds are just like, we're here to have fun. We're already like loose. We just want to experience New York City, eat a hot dog off the street, like go laugh, like see the Empire State Building. So they're great. The New York crowds are like, just you better come up here and just be 100% authentically you and hilarious, like, immediately. Otherwise, we just don't give a shit.
Yeah. Yeah, because my experience when I went up, and so when you say you lived in New York, you lived in New York, New York. I'm taking right. So
Yeah, I lived in Manhattan. Yeah,
and that's where you're fucking from.
I'm from like a suburban town outside of this, like 45 minutes outside of the city.
Dude, coming from Florida, I mean, I just like when I went up there, I remember bumping into people and I said sorry a couple times, and it was like it would have been better if I said something about their mother. You know, the fact that I said sorry insulted some people more than I like. My buddy that's from there pulled me aside. He's like, dude, people here don't say sorry. It's okay. You're just like, you just go, right? Just go.
Don't hold open the door for anyone either, because especially at a busy building, they just keep coming in.
Yeah, everybody. You got to take care of yourself, and nobody gives a fuck about anybody else. And yeah,
but there's also like this like really weird like bravado that I found from people from the Northeast because of the harshness of the climate. It's almost like this shared commonhood of like, we're harder than the rest of Americans or something, where I found something really appealing about that.
Yeah, I think it's a sickness, to be honest. Like, I really do. I mean, I think that like, it's whenever you have that many people crammed into one tiny little space, it's I forget who told me this. One of my friends told me that, this thing about like I think is it grasshoppers or crickets, but there's a certain kind of thing that they when they get closed into a small space and they're outside of their natural environment, that they become locusts and like and start going crazy and swarm. So I feel that there's some connection there with like people. You know, when you're crammed into a bunch of people all the time, 8 million people or maybe more crammed into a little space. Everything costs, you know, $1 million. It's like a madness that I think people that live there justify as a sense of pride. And like, it seems like what was the word that you used? Like bravado. Yeah. It seems like they have a bravado, but I would say it's more of a frasado because it's kind of a facade. It's a coping mechanism thing.
I mean, there's something alluring about it. Like I gotta be like you said, to visit, you know, Austin. You're like, hey, I love visiting, right? Like everybody has their own slice of whatever they want. And there's something really, really appealing about being able to go out at 3, 4 in the morning. And there's like this other part of the city that comes alive. You know, it's got a different energy altogether, but it's just interesting to be able to go out and it's like this whole other hive comes alive. And that's the only place I've ever seen in the world. I've been a lot of places where like it comes on like that. There's a lot of cities that stay up late, but it literally feels like a whole different city opens at night that's not open during the day. I don't know if you would agree with that sentiment.
I agree. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great things about it. I mean, I'm from New York. I've lived there a long time. I lived in the city for like 8 years, so I can shit on it as a, you know, like I can trash it, you know, but there's a lot of beauty to it. I love the diversity there, the energy. It's electric. There's just a lot happening there. There's a lot of creativity as well. So yeah. And then what you mentioned is a great, you know, yeah, it's like a whole nother entity comes alive at night. Yeah.
If you go there to party too, they'll just be like, oh, you're here to party? Cool. Like, nonstop, right? You didn't get a hotel. You'll just crash at everybody's pad wherever we take you. All right, cool. Just wanted to make sure you were on board with what we are.
Yeah, it's tough. So you go from there, and you said, hey, Denver just seemed like a cool place to live, right? Or you started getting psychedelics in New York, and did that kind of change anything for you, like change where your roots were or what you're doing, or what did that look like?
Getting into psychedelics in New York?
You got into psychedelics? That's what I'm trying to figure out the timeline, because it sounds like something happened that like you just decided, hey, I want to pick a spot on the map, right? And just kind of go, or?
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I'm from New York and not too far outside of the city, so I would go to, that's what we call it, the city, and we would just go there all the time and stuff. And so, and then I lived there after college. I lived there from 2009 to 2017. And in 2016, I went to Peru for the first time to drink ayahuasca. And when I came back, I just felt like I was done with New York and the energy and the people, and a lot of things had shifted. Drinking ayahuasca had basically, a lot of things that weren't serving me sort of needed to go, so I could create this space to go to the next place, inside of me, like who I'm becoming and what I'm doing in the world. And so I moved back in with my parents for a couple months, and then I went down to Peru again and volunteered at the place that I first drank ayahuasca at, and then I wound up working there for a little bit, and then I met my partner there. And she had been backpacking around the world. She had quit her job. She was working in Boston for Liberty Mutual, and she quit her job and went on a backpacking trip around the world for like a year and a half, and her last stop was this ayahuasca center that we met at. And so I just didn't go back to New York. I went with her, and then we were both like, where should we live? And came up with a couple places: Austin, Portland, Seattle, Denver. I just wanted somewhere different than New York. And I had Kevin Matthews, the campaign director for the psilocybin initiative in Denver to decriminalize mushrooms, on my podcast. And I was like, yeah, I'm moving to Denver. And he was like, great, come get involved with the campaign. I was like, sweet. So it just seemed like a cool place. Things are happening here. Cannabis is legal. Mushrooms are decriminalized. There's a good energy here. The mountains. And I'm happy to call this home now. It feels very, very much like home.
Yeah, I will say, until moving to Austin, one thing that put me off about Denver was just kind of like the general prices of things. Like, the traffic's not too bad, right? But there is definitely something to be said for, like, the general cost of living is a little higher than you'd think. And
that's why it helps to live in New York, so that you can be, shocked by, gouged by that, and then you come here and you're like, what a deal!
What a deal! Exactly.
Savings.
I moved to Austin because when I was in Tampa, I was like, this is fucking egregious. I moved to Austin, didn't even catch it until my friend pointed out, and I was like, only 1.2 million? Like, you're getting 3 bedrooms. Like, that's really good. And he was like, what the fuck are you talking? I was like, Austin will change you. You just moved in where a lot of other grasshoppers turning into locusts. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, hey, that hive looks good. I can go over there. That's cool, man. So
I'm curious as to what, she was a world traveler. You're pretty traveling at that time. I was just wondering, was there any ever interest of living outside the U.S.?
Yeah, definitely. Still is. So, I mean, there's a lot of amazing places that I would consider. But yeah, I'm here for now. Yeah, and like, it feels like I need to be here for at least a couple more years, and then who knows. But I'm very fond of Costa Rica. I mean, I've been there a bunch of times, and the people are great. It's just a great place. But there is like a lot. I feel like a lot of people are moving there, so it's like almost like maybe choose a place that's not as known, so you could still retain some of that authentic culture, and also be a part of that, join that culture, and not bring a new one down.
South Dakota.
Hey, I like South Dakota. I've been there. Yeah. Yeah. Are you in South Dakota?
No, I'm in Florida.
Oh, okay. All right.
where did South Dakota come from?
Well, he said where not a lot of people are, and something's going up, and I'm like, I've never heard of anyone going to South Dakota until now. That is.
Yeah, I went to Badlands National Park, South Dakota. It was really sweet. Saw an epic thunderstorm, lightning.
Ooh.
Purple and red and yellow, and the whole, like, it was just an expansive sky, and a bison. I came like 3 feet away from a massive bison, looked like a thing out of Star Wars. It was great, and the canyons in the Badlands are really trippy. And then the Black Hills, I think we went to. That was cool too. So yeah, shout out South Dakota. You guys got some cool shit.
Yeah, everybody's sleeping on the Dakotas, and I still don't understand the whole North-South Dakota thing. But
it's pretty complex. Out. Yeah. No, I hear you. Solidarity, brother.
Yeah, man. But I mean, so like, if you see yourself being in Denver for a couple years, like, what do you have a vision or like, what are you up to? Like, as far as growing your own community, you mentioned you got an event coming up. So like, what kind of roots do you see planting there?
Yeah. I'm really doing a lot of planting right now, which is really nice. I've been running a men's group with my business partner, Bill Burns, and that we've been doing that for almost 2 years now. And so we got some great guys here, and then recently started working with this organization called Sacred Sons, and doing some masculine alchemy with them, and then just also participating in the consciousness expanding modalities of the earth that partake in ceremonially, ritually, intentionally. So there's a lot of seeds being planted here, and there's a lot of gardeners tending to those. So it's a cool place to be for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting environment. Like when I go up there and kind of partake in, I think every time I'm taking a trip up there's nothing medicinal about it. I'm full on recreational, So, but at the same time, there's so many communities that are fostering a healthy outlet for psychotherapies and alike, where I was at Red Rocks and I'm eating my mushrooms and still kind of like looking over my shoulder. And then I realized here it's probably more acceptable to damn near eat mushrooms than it is drink a beer. It's like really welcome in that community. I guess from your perspective, like what do you feel like is played into that? Like, why is Denver becoming such a hub for free thinking, or just like, hey, like because to us it makes sense, right? It's like it's a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't you want to use these tools in your tool belt to help get you where you want to go, heal, etc.? But living there, why do you think Denver is kind of attracting all these people, or is just like, even from like a municipal standpoint, the government kind of like fostering these avenues for legislation to come through and kind of decriminalize some of these tools? Like, I don't know if that's landing for you, but
for sure. Yeah. I mean, I got a couple ideas. I think that it's a really unique place geographically. It sort of has, like, the state of Colorado has a lot of microclimates to it. Like, there's desert, there's mountainous areas, there's lake, river, creek. There's a good topography, diverse topography. I believe I'm using that word correctly. Geography. Yeah, topography. Yeah, and the people, I think there's also, they say that there's about 300 days of sun a year. And I could definitely attest to the fact that it is the sunniest place that I've ever lived in. New York winters would get gray and dark, and the sun wouldn't really come out. Here, the sun's out. So I think that, like, there's something to that people enjoy getting out into nature and going on hikes and doing a lot of outdoor sports type of activities. So there's a general air of, like, hey, we just want to, like, we'll work, we'll pay our taxes. We just want to kind of have fun. We want to have some rights. I think there's just kind of that general air in the collective here. So people are, like, a little bit more like, hey, whatever. Like, people want to eat mushrooms, doesn't bother me. Like, fine. Things like that. And there's also a really unique music scene here as well. It wasn't until I got out to Denver that I really discovered a lot of new and interesting music. I mean, like you mentioned, Red Rocks. That's like a premier place to see music. So I think, like, growing up or being around that, and that has something to do with it. And I think I could probably think of maybe a couple more reasons, but people generally like healthy, good, authentic things here, and like to get outside and have fun and have a good time. So I think the collective mind is a little bit more, like, malleable to change.
Kind of reminds me of San Francisco. Why everyone went there originally was kind of the same thing. It's kind of in the middle of all these environments that they can go to, central location, and be a little bit more creative. In Florida, you have basically 4 types of birds, 100 types of lizards, sun, rain, ocean, right? But you go there, like you say, there's so many different environments. You can be way more introspective of what's around you, I feel like.
That's a good point. I left out, like, the wildlife. Like when you go out into the wilderness here and go for you just go on a casual hike like 20 minutes away from my house, you could potentially see. Actually, I was on someone's street the other day, and there was a woman walking her dog, and she's like, "Oh, there's a moose walking around in the street." Like, there's down there, I just saw a moose. So like the proximity to wildlife, and then also the ability to, go out into the wilderness, into the mountains, and do, things like camping and rafting and those kinds of things, and live in the natural environment, I think is like really, really healthy for human beings, our nervous systems, to have that connection with nature, just being in it, like absorbed by it, and then seeing and witnessing other life that isn't human. So I think that these are all like factors that play into like, legislation and laws and things getting changed for the better.
Yeah, my girlfriend Abby and I talked about that. And it's like, hey, we don't know if Austin's gonna be our forever place, but there's so many appealing things about Denver, and I'm glad. I really agree with what you're saying, because there's something when you have an ability to just get out in nature, it kind of permeates your soul, resets your nervous system a bit. And I only brought that up because when I think about like Denver decriminalizing mushrooms, you look at somewhere like, well, what was the city, Baltimore? Didn't they decriminalize mushrooms too?
Washington D.C. decriminalized all plant medicines.
No, Oakland. Was it Oakland?
Yeah, Oakland did, and Washington D.C. did.
Who the fuck wants to go to Oakland to trip? Like, that's where that came from. Like I hear Denver and I'm like, hey, my bad if you're listening to Oakland. I'm sure it's a beautiful place, but like, it's not the first place I'm thinking about to go fucking trip and walk around. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I'm like, maybe there's an anomaly happen there, right? But Denver, I could totally see it. People are just like, hey, I just want to have a good time.
What about like Portland?
Everybody probably wants to have a good time.
Portland, Oregon, right? Didn't they decriminalize everything?
Yeah. Plant medicine, decriminalized nature was the one that came out of Oakland, and then a bunch of states were like, oh, cool, that's the playbook. Let's go with that. So yeah, that's Oregon as well.
Everyone listened to Oakland on something? Wow.
Hey, they had some good ideas. They had some good people too. So yeah, they got it done. Hey, that's the thing, is it can come from anywhere as long as you have if you have people that are committed to making positive change, it can happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're having a lot of people on your show too that are pretty tapped in with that. I mean, is there anything coming down the pipe here recently that you feel like could be really changing the landscape on legislation or just access?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really been as involved as I once was. I know that there's Proposition 58 or ballot number 58, the campaign. So basically the decriminalization campaign in Denver in 2019 that went through, campaign director Kevin Matthews, he went in like a different direction than one of the other guys that was in charge, my friend Travis. He decided that like it was better to decriminalize first, and they want to do like a bill for, I don't know if I'm going to get this totally right, but they want to go for like a medical model first, and there's a lot of issues with that, but I don't know. I kind of checked out a little bit because I'm just like, all right, I'm sort of like really focused in on doing certain particular things and leaving that to the committed activists like Travis and the other people that are involved with that. But yeah, essentially they want to decriminalize all plant medicine and just not have any restrictions, so that some law says that you have to get a license now, and you have to charge like $3,000 for a visit to get like some treatments for mushrooms. Like, the idea is that we're all community here, and we can empower each other. We can grow our own mushrooms. We can join together and compare notes and things like that. And there's a well-established underground community of practitioners and stuff. And so, yeah, decriminalization I support that. Like, put the power in the hands of the people, liberate them, let them make their own decisions, and let's not, restrict access to only people that can afford it.
Yeah, I did see the DEA was going to put 6 psychedelics that are currently in the research for the medical world on class 1. And instead of letting it what they usually do, they usually just push it through and let it happen. It was the first time they opened it up and said, like, to the public, saying, what's your thoughts on this? And about 600 people responded super quickly back to that. It was like, no, we're using this to do a ton of research in PTSD, psychedelics, psych wards, things like that, to do research on it. And so now there's a bunch of pushback. So it was one of the first times ever that the government kind of opened it up to the public first before just pushing it through.
Awesome.
So because of now, there's they're going to reevaluate pushing that through. That they're not giving DEA access anymore just to push things through, which is pretty neat.
That's
I read
great.
that today.
Yeah, awesome.
On Maps.
That's good. Yeah.
I really took that as like it was going to be a sick twist of like the government just wants the input, like the sin machine. Like, oh, how bad do you want us not to do this?
Could be that too, yeah.
Be a nice fee, whatever you want. Mike, there was something that I saw. You might be able, what you were talking about earlier, what you've been getting into more. I don't even know what it was, so I'm just going to describe it, and you kind of helped me out. It was definitely like a men's spiritual group, right? We were at the top of a mountain out there. It was in like a park, and they all surrounded in a circle, and were doing some breathing exercises, but then they were doing like stretches, but then doing jumping jacks, and then they were talking about how they introduced themselves coming from different cultures from around the world, and what their ethnicity was and things like that. They wanted people from around the world, and then to the point they were doing stretches, and then they were coming all the way down to doing 8 motions and noises and like getting on top of each other and hugging each other, and then coming back out of the middle, and then going back out of the circle to do breathing exercises again. I was like, there's something going on here. I don't know what that is, but it's some sort of men's spiritual group. And you were talking about that earlier. It kind of sounded down the path that you were talking about.
Yeah, so where did you see this?
I was in Oahu in Hawaii. Yeah, and it was just like a gentleman, obviously.
You were there watching it happen.
I watched it. Yeah, well, we just so happened, I was on a hiking trip with this, excursion trip that we were on, and it just so happened we stopped here for a lunch break, and we just came across this group of guys. They were just getting started, and so it was.
Well, by the way, hold the phone. We should have said this at the top of the hour. You're looking at a newly engaged man.
Oh,
congratulations, brother!
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah. Good job, Mike.
Yeah.
You did it. Me too, by the way.
Oh.
Wait, holy fuck, Mike, you're engaged. I was talking about Dylan.
No, Mike said it in the beginning. He just is newly engaged.
Oh, I'm newly engaged
I missed
too.
that. I didn't hear that.
Yeah. I was like, oh, cool. I guess you looked at my Instagram or something. Congrats, Dylan. Yeah.
You too, Mike.
Yeah,
Cheers.
yeah.
Dude, that's so cool. Both of you guys. So, Mike, when did you propose?
I think it was like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah. Wow.
Last week for me.
Nice. Yeah. Congrats. That's cool.
You too, buddy.
Happy it's coming if you hear this. So just get off my back. Happy it'll be good. It'll be coming. So sorry to throw a wrench in that, guys, but I just want to honor the both of you. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Good synchronicity.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, I was just curious because we couldn't figure out what it was, and the only thing I could describe was like, I've been at a music festival, I've definitely seen something like this, but it was usually everybody, being a part of it, and this was strictly just men in this group, and it was definitely people from all around the world.
And they were doing like a self-contained thing, or they were doing like more of like a showy performance type thing?
No, self-contained.
Oh, okay.
It was for them in this group.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they were putting on a show for people. Like, they met at this park. They had you could tell they had some like shakers, some drums for a little bit later.
Yeah, it sounds about the kind of people I'd be hanging out with. Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely sounded like that. And I was like, I want to be a part of that right now, but I've got to go hike with these other people that I'm with, But I was like wanting to jump in there.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I mean,
they were making them sign waivers. I was like, I don't know what they're going to get into, but
yeah. Well, and I guess anytime you lead a group of people to do something, you sign a waiver's a good idea. It's like that's the if you're doing some hippie shit, you're gonna have some professionalism in there.
Hey.
Yeah, the downside to a waiver is not much, right? You're talking a couple minutes. The upside is pretty up there.
Yeah, risk reward is high.
Right. So you mentioned you've kind of pivoted to really focusing more on like men's circles integration, and is it specifically men, or what kind of created that pivot for you and focusing on more of these like ritualistic ceremonial type events?
Yeah, I started attending a men's circle that my friend started, who's now my business partner, and in 2020 during the pandemic. And shortly after that, I saw the power of connecting in community and having a bond of brotherhood with a range of different ages. It was great. Some people younger than me, some people older, and group of about 8 guys, and we would meet regularly, and then we did like a whitewater rafting trip. We did a backpacking trip. It was really fun and really real as well, which I really, really like. That's one of the things that really turns me on is like realness, and I think with the psychedelic work as well, it's like I'd been engaged with that for a long time, and this was sort of like a missing component that I didn't know that I was missing. And so got involved with that, and it's been really, it's been really like the missing link, I think, in the things that I'm interested in, which is really first and foremost getting to the truth of who I am, understanding how I operate, how do I show up in the world, am I being authentic, am I speaking the truth, like am I being honest, am I getting into all that, and then entering into a group with that. Like everybody is sort of like evolving alongside each other together at the same time. But it's really about, this inner work that we're doing to make sure, for me at least, it's like I want to make sure that I'm using up what I got to the best of my capacity without like putting any unnecessary pressure or strain on myself, but just like making sure that I'm feeling satisfied with like who I am and what I'm doing. And I found that in the men's communities.
Do you feel like that's like I don't know. I'm trying to think about what that is. That like a smaller version of like a micro version of like what a Tony Robbins might be, but it's more of centralized instead of someone talking at you. You're working together.
Yeah, I mean, it's we do a lot of like. There's rarely any like talking at anyone. It's usually groups of guys. And we usually split into like smaller teams so that we can kind of work together in a really dynamic way as well, in like a really personal way and a really horizontal way where everybody is sort of participating and contributing in one way or another. Sometimes it's just observing, but yeah, it's really like something that I needed. And I needed it a lot, and then by experiencing how powerful that was, I'm like, okay, cool. I want to share this experience now.
Mm-hmm. Was it almost like I almost want to say like I enjoy going to jiu-jitsu, right? And so every time you go, you get a little bit better. You get a little bit better. And you get a little bit more comfortable with it, right? I'm sure when you first went to that, you're probably like, what is this? And you're learning about it. But then as you went more and more, your confidence grew a little bit more, but not only with like going to the group, like that's just going to happen, but you became more confidence with yourself probably because you had people kind of just walking you through things you were trying to figure out.
Yeah, I think like the core of it is that we've all experienced situations in our lives where we're hanging out with people that we love. We're hanging out with the people that we love, and why do we love these people so much is like because at least for me, it's people that encourage and facilitate me to be myself, and not necessarily like facilitate. That sounds like more of a sort of formal word, but like just people that are so radically and authentically themselves, openly, honestly, vulnerably, like showing all the sides of themselves, even the parts that we don't like to share. They even share those. Like those people give me permission to be myself. And I feel that way. I feel like there's a special thing that happens when it's just like a group of men doing that, because we've sort of gotten away from that sort of like, there's a lot of men that just wind up getting old and they're alone and they don't really have like a lot of friends. And, I know like plenty of like my parent, like my dad, or like, people that I know that are older like that. And men commit the most amount of suicides, and they get arrested for things the most, and they have the most amount of psychiatric like conditions and things like. So there's a lot of woes, and there's not much support. Like there's not much coming together and supporting each other. It's very cutthroat and competitive, and we have to be against each other and challenge each other. And so stepping into these spaces with all men, it reminds me of like when I was 8-9 years old, and I just had some friends and we just played together, and it was like, hey, whatever, whoever you are, we're all in this thing and we're just doing it. And it's very supportive, and it's a good place to activate a deeper sense of yourself.
I definitely see that, especially as I've gotten older, right? A lot of people I've talked with sometimes, some guys just feel lonely, that they feel like, especially post-college, right? You go after college, you have all these people, or high school, whatever it might be, all these people. All of a sudden, everyone kind of spreads out into the world, and where are you going with your path? And I feel like, I've directed guys to groups before. It might not even be like a group like that. I'll be like, oh, do you like whiskey? Go find a whiskey social club, that people like to do. And then guys, I think, forget, because we get so, like you said, we're there to provide. Like our DNA is to provide, not only for ourselves, but for our significant others. And we forget to take care of ourselves as well along the way. And what you're doing, I think, is definitely spreading. I definitely think that's happening more. It's just not talked about enough, because like you said, suicide rates are higher up than men than they've ever been before, across, however many genders there are these days. Definitely men have the highest one, So, yeah, I think that's awesome what you're doing. And I really think men, a lot of men think it's like an AA when I bring it up to them to do stuff like that. And I'm like, no, it's not an AA. Like, it's literally like, they're just it's like Boy Scouts. Go just hang out. That's all they're doing, learning with each other.
Yeah.
And hanging out and going on trips together.
Yeah, that's great. I love that you brought that up, because there is this sort of like judgment and intimidation or whatever. Like, oh, what is this? Like, I got to go there or talk about my problems or something. You don't have to say shit.
Yeah.
It's just like literally all you have to do is show up. And I think that the healing happens. It just like, it happens in community. It happens amongst people. It happens over time. It happens through several experiences. We don't necessarily have to be, pinpoint focused on traumas and wounds and things like that all the time. There's a lot of situations where we can get caught up into that process. I've seen it in the spiritual community, in the healing community, wherever you want to call it. But there's something about brotherhood. There's something about playfulness, community, like guys getting together to do things like we, sat in a sweat lodge together, like traditional indigenous Hawaiian sweat lodge. And we, built like a smoker to smoke salmon in the forests in Oregon. And, we're boxing each other awesome. and wrestling each other. And we're doing it all with like love and fun and openness. So, I'm just a big proponent of like, we need that. Like, we need to get back together. We need to like see each other, feel each other, hear each other, and have that sort of like real human experience and tap into that primalness as well. Cause I think we need that in the world. It's, I was having this thought the other day about how a lot of people that I know who travel around the world are really open, to like new people and new experiences, and just like, hey, what's going to happen? Like, who am I going to meet? Like, what kind of food am I going to eat? Like, this is going to be great. Like, there's this openness to exploration and discovery. Yet we live in a world of like paranoid, neurotic lunatics that are like, what are they doing over there? Like, what's going, why do we allow that? It's just, it's so sad. So, it's as Charles Eisenstein would say, like, it's the mechanism of separation that wants to make us all into like these hyper individualistic consumers. And that's we can participate in consumerism. We can participate in the whole thing, but it doesn't have to be our singular domain that we occupy. We can occupy a larger space. And I see a lot of this work as being key to that, because if you get men to, have the courage and bravery to step into a space and be vulnerable and talk about their issues, whatever they deem to be important to speak to about themselves, we have a lot different world that we're looking at,
I definitely see music festivals a lot of times are a gateway for that for a lot of men. Because I've definitely been at a music festival, just started talking with a guy, and he's like, I've never told anybody about this kind of stuff before. I'm like, yeah, man, it's open season here. Dude, talk about whatever you want. I also find it interesting that what you were talking about, that I feel like men have forgot that that's what we used to, before all this entertainment, tribes and stuff, men would work on their archery or their wrestle or work on things, but they were doing that too to work together and build relationships with each other. And I don't know why, but it just reminded me of like Hollywood, where like when the next battle scene's coming up, it's always somebody walking up to the group of men already doing that together, but then they pull the chief to the side. But what they're skipping over was all that part that they were doing to now go to, hey, I got to take care of my family now.
Yeah. I was throwing axes at our last event and learning how to do that. We had a brother there that was teaching axe throwing, and I was like, this is great. He taught me a couple of things. I was there like all day just throwing axes, and then some other guys showed up, and they were like, how do you do this? I'm like, come on, man. Like, let's throw some axes. It's
throw
great.
it behind your back.
Yeah.
Let me show you.
Yeah. I'm throwing it under my legs and one. But yeah.
It's amazing what comes out from that community. I mean, I joined one here called the Empowered Brotherhood in Austin, and any man listening to this, by the way, I mean, I think it's really easy to kind of like be dismissive of this and kind of wait for the next topic that we're bringing up. But like, I couldn't highlight, double click, bold what we're talking about enough right here, because I remember when I went, it was seeking community in Austin, but I didn't realize like how fucking terrifying it was going to be around a whole bunch of other men. You could also interchange boy with man here, in my opinion, right? Like, picture sitting in a big old circle of boys, because certain topics get brought up or certain questions presented, and I'll be goddamn if I wasn't reduced back to the moment that a belief system was born or an ideology was born, right? And so that's been one of the most cathartic experiences of my life, especially if you are fortunate enough to be around some great leadership and people that have taken the time to, metastasize their own experiences and articulate it in a way where other people feel really seen, heard, safe, felt, and understood. Like that's a place that, again, it's another tool in the tool belt, but I think it's kind of one of the most critical components for a man or a woman is to find some kind of shared brotherhood, sisterhood, community, whatever you identify with, that allows you to unpack some shit, right? Just be around people that are just like, hey, like I see you and you got this. That's what we always say. I see you, you got this. And bonus points if you can throw an axe, right? If you can learn how to throw an axe.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're throwing axes and we're also, going up to each other and saying things like, hey man, I want to let you know that when we first met, I had this judgment about you, but I actually realized that it was something that I wasn't comfortable with inside of myself. So I'm sorry if I gave off some kind of vibe. And then it's like, oh no, dude, like I didn't get that impression at all. Like, oh, that's cool that like that I was able to activate that within you, because we're all just reflections of each other. That's one of the things that I've learned more deeply in these men's spaces, is because I think that men are more prone to kind of sizing other men up and sort of making judgments or holding back and being like, man, I don't need to participate in this. I got this shit. I know this shit. Like, I don't really have to do, there's just sort of more of that thing going on, I feel like there, or at least I could speak about that because I am a man. I don't know what it's like to be anything else. So I experience it to be that way. but we're really just
Right.
holding up these mirrors and these reflections, like, oh, something I see in you is activating something in me, like that's creating this feeling, this sensation. It's making me maybe think about something in a particular way or whatever it is. And that's such an amazing space to be in, because it clears the pipes of any like gook that gets in, because any of that gook is just then can spiral into stories, and it gets you in a whole mess. So being in a space where you can just openly, honestly, authentically communicate the truth of your experience in its totality is amazing. And then when I do that, like, other people go, oh wow, I can do that too. And then they do that, and then other men are like, holy shit, he's doing that, now I can do that. You know, we give each other permission to say, give me more of you. More, I want it all the stuff, everything, even if you think it's bad or shitty or mean, give it all. It's welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, that's how you end up with a better world, right? I really love that you said that, because it's like, it's easy. I don't know how polished I thought about consumerism, individuality, but that really pulled a thread in my own head when I was like, God damn, like that. I mean, that is one of the mechanisms that's driving the machine, right? And it's not, hey, right, it'll be painted in whatever light you decide to shade it in, but it definitely, without community, divisiveness occurs, and this idea of individuality, like I need to be the superhero, or I need to present myself some way because I'm an individual, like that. I have certainly felt that in my role in leading others, where it's like I have to present myself a certain way so that other people will honor me. But it kind of directly conflicts, because a community is held together with so many different types of glue, so many different types of sticks. And if everybody feels like they got to be something they're not, then all the cogs break down.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, and that's what community is all about, is bringing together. And when, just speaking on brotherhood, when you see brothers going through some real shit that they've been so scared to speak to, you realize, like, all of a sudden I felt stuff come online for me where I didn't realize, like, that was in me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh shit, like I have an ability to hold space. And then at the same time, you'll also feel inadequacies in yourself, that by just bearing your soul to another human being, something comes on in line in them, and they have an opportunity to reveal some wisdom to you that they didn't realize, because some shit they went through way back when and made it out on the other side better for it. Now they have an opportunity to give that gift to you. It's this beautiful thing that happens when two souls drop the walls and are like, hey, I'm fucking scared, naked, and afraid, but like I need you. And that embrace is a beautiful thing, so
yeah.
I'm kind
Sound
of
like an ayahuasca trip.
Oh, it is.
I mean,
Sacred Sons, like, one of their taglines is brotherhood is the medicine. And I've been in a lot of ayahuasca ceremonies and a lot of psychedelic experiences, and going to their big event, Convergence, in Oregon last year was the catalyst, like, really, because it was like, wow, this really is, like, there's a deep medicine here. And it's powerful, yeah, it's that being togetherness is like, we can't discount that, because I think that we're being ushered in, or at least like the conditions are being set to make it really easy to participate in a world that's virtual and abstract. There's a lot of ways in which we don't have to necessarily be a communal participant anymore. And I think that there's a lot of downside to that, because what happens is, like what you were explaining, Colton, is like the increase of empathy by mere proximity, like feeling another person, what they're saying. You're like, holy shit, I'm feeling what they're saying, and that's bringing up this thing for me, and I'm now feeling this other thing. And there's a lot of the world in which that it's just like, hey, it's just virtual, it's abstract, it's out there, whatever. Like I'll talk to people sometimes that'll talk to me about things, and they'll say, oh, these people and this stuff, and it's all because of this or that or the other thing. And I'm like, well, yeah, tell me how you experience that in your life, and most times they don't have any real life examples. I'm like, you got to get out there. You got to get with other people, and you got to get together with other people feel them. You'll feel each other's souls. Otherwise, yeah, it's not so great the other way.
Or just be fucking challenged. You know, like I love the way you open this, I think is the best way. And I don't want to back that down. By proximity, healing will occur. You know, I wish somebody would have framed it for as terrified as I was to, like, you know, I've been in a lot of situations, a lot of stuff. Totally cool in my own skin. But like, yeah, new kid at, you know, first day of school, you're like, I don't know these people. What's going to happen? Right? Like, you can just be there and just shut the fuck up and like just observe or whatever. Right? But then there's the next level when you open yourself up to leadership and you're like, no, I don't got any shit. You know, it's like, well, let's take this fucking flashlight. What you got going on in here, buddy? You know, it's like everybody has shit, you know? Yeah. So like when you go to these circles, man, if you open yourself up to it, like a really great thing to have is conflicting points of view, right? Like that's just a beautiful thing is like, especially if you can be in a safe space where it's like, no, let's fucking duke it out of the minds. Or physically, right? If you're not in the shape you want to be in, someone calling you on your shit. If you're not being honest, right? Like there's splinters in your soul and you're choosing to just live hurt. And someone going like, dude, come on, this is like the 5th week you brought this up. Like, are you going to do something about that?
Hell yeah. Yeah,
you know,
that
like,
is super important. That is a necessary component is, I would say another tagline for Sacred Sons could be, we don't tolerate your bullshit. You know, it's like come show up, but be real. Like and drop the stories, drop the act, drop all that stuff. Like we're going to help. We're going to stand alongside of you and we're going to help facilitate, you know, the pathway to that growth. But we're going to also push you up to that edge and be like, "Hey, like we're not calling you out, we're calling you in." You know, it's like come in, like come in more. Be more you and stand up. For who you are and take responsibility of who you are, because that's what we all want. We all want, like, if there's somebody in the organization, you know, like someone was telling me about office politics or something like that the other day about like, oh, this person said this and this thing happened. I'm like, that shit doesn't happen at Sacred Sons because it's just like that's like it's like seen so clearly and it's addressed and it's just like rooted out. It's like, if you're not like, you know, showing up and being all you could be, if you're like making excuses, that's just not tolerated, you know? And it's not tolerated because that's enabling people to keep playing out the same patterns that they want to move out of, but haven't done the work to move out of them. So I really love that aspect of challenging in brotherhood and men's circles, like, being like, hey, don't bring your bullshit here. Like, step up. Like, be truthful here. Like, you know, that's a huge aspect of it.
I can't think of a better way to kind of wrap this up, man. That's powerful stuff. That right there is medicine in itself, man. So, thank you. Thank Sacred Sons. Yeah. Dylan, you got something that looks like.
No, I was just going to say, Mike, what did you want to? You were telling us you had an event coming up. Here in July.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll just drop a couple things. Like right now, a lot of my work is with Sacred Sons. So we got an immersion experience in Denver. It's a 2-day thing. Come get a little taste of what this work is. I think it's great for guys who are just like, you know, not really sure. They don't know if they want to make the full commitment to like a weekend thing, something like that. Just come in, check it out, see what it's all about, see what this work is, see if it's for you. So that's coming up July 16th and 17th in Denver. And then another 2 things is we're going to be doing an EMX, which is called an Embodied Masculine Experience. And that'll be September in beautiful Ward, Colorado at Camp Tahosa, amazing former Boy Scout camp that we're using for this event. And that's going to be 4 nights, I believe. So it'll be like from the 15th to the 18th. And that's like the sort of the bigger event. And then the big massive yearly event is called Convergence 7. And that's in October in North Carolina. And but you could just go to Sacred Sons and find all this stuff out. And then also, you know, Mikeadelic podcast is my Instagram. But yeah, I'm changing some things with Mikeadelic. It'll be expanding, so I'm really excited about that as well. So yeah, that's
Looking forward to that.
that's all the promotion you know. And then buy that CBD that Josh works for. I forget the name of the company.
yeah.
That
They're
company.
gonna love all that free promotion. Sincerely, thank you
Thanks,
for
Mike.
coming on, brother. And if you guys like this episode, hey, it'll help us out. It'll help him out, pushing it out to a new audience, new people. Please share it if you feel so called. But if you like this kind of content, if you like what we're talking about, feel free to follow along our journey. I think there's some buttons you can press to do that. Mike, great having you on. If you can hang out for just a couple seconds once we officially close this out. Got anything else for him, Dylan? I think we're good to go.
We're good to go. Peace,
Yeah.
everybody.
Thank
Love
you.
you.
Peace.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye, guys.
Love.